Hey guys, it's Alex with Hammond Watch. Here today with a pretty fun kind of review and run through. It's the Omega Planet Ocean GMT. It's the GoodPlanet Foundation variant. So we're looking at the blue ceramic bezel and dial with all the orange accents. And a special shout out to Jewelry Works. They're my local watchmaker and Seiko authorized dealer here in Gainesville, Florida. They're out of the Oaks Mall, kind enough to lend this watch in along with a few others, and I really appreciate the support. David Lyles is a great guy to deal with. If you guys ever have a need for anything Seiko, reach out to him. You won't be disappointed. So the GoodPlanet Foundation, if you guys aren't familiar, it was created by a photojournalist. His name was Jan Artis Bertrand, I believe. His aim was to raise some public awareness for environmental issues and environmental protection. His photography is phenomenal, and you see very nature-based. He does a lot of very epic aerial shots. And oh, there he is. So you can imagine having a love for the beauty of nature and how that ties into wanting to conserve as much of it as possible. Not to mention, he got to partner with Omega and make a pretty amazing watch. You know, I'm in Gainesville, Florida. If you guys don't know, the University of Florida is here in town. The colors for the school are orange and blue, so it's a color scheme I'm very familiar with, and it's very interesting to see on a watch of this caliber. And I'm going to switch over to macro so we can really get in there, and we'll run through the specs and touch on some of the details and what makes this such a nice watch. So when you get up close, this watch really pops out. It reminds me a lot of the Seamaster ceramic with the dial, in that it's so shiny and reflective that you sacrifice a little bit of legibility. But what you get back in premium feel and beauty, I think is well worth it. Besides, most of the time when you're reading this, you're not looking for your 12, 6, or 9. You're really looking for those Loom-filled indexes. So it's plenty legible. You just see Omega and some of the other applied pieces disappear into the light and into the darkness from time to time. This watch, and what I would caution people to, if you like bigger watches, go for it. Like, don't even think about it. It's a fantastic watch. If you have a smaller wrist, consider the thickness, because while 43.5 millimeter case, isn't a deal breaker for most, you're looking at a thickness of 17.5 millimeters. And as a guy with a 7.5 inch wrist, it scared me a little bit. Now, this watch wears it very well. It's got a 49.5 millimeter lug to lug, so kind of a page out of Seiko's book, and that if your watch is kind of oversized, bring it in here, and it'll wear much smaller. But this 8605 movement, which is essentially the Omega 8500 with the added GMT function, you're just going to have a thicker watch. The movements are still relatively young, and Omega just hasn't found a way to fully slim them down yet. What they have found, though, is a way to make them exceptionally beautiful. They've blackened their screws. This swirl finishing that they've seemed to incorporate into all of their movements now is just next level cool. I think it kind of takes a step forward as opposed to the typical stripes and coats de Genève. Big fan. Love the Coaxial Escapement too. If you guys aren't familiar, hop on YouTube and check out Coaxial Escapement. Essentially, it's a mechanism within the watch that utilizes jewels in a bit of a different way, and kind of how it pressures on the escapement, cuts down on friction, which in theory extends life in between services, as well as just the life of the movement in general. So with a company like Omega investing in making sure that your watch has a longer life, I think it's certainly something to take notice of, especially when you start splitting hairs between Omega and Rolex, and Omega is certainly making strides in that department. The bracelet on this thing is also exceptional. Brushing is very uniform, double pusher deployant clasp, and then as you would expect, we do have a dive extension in there. Go ahead and pop it out. So you can see, nice and milled, extremely high quality. Get that back in there. All in all, I think great for the money. Let's have a quick look at some of the Loom here. And I love this 2-color Loom setup. In a real diving situation, all you really need is that pip and that minutes hand. Having them distinguished in a different color is something I'm always a fan of. If Seiko would start doing this on more models without forcing you to take a goofy dial along with it, I'd be very appreciative. But for the time being, companies like Omega and even Tag Heuer do a little bit better job at mixing the color combinations up. So I want to thank you guys for stopping by. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content. If you have, there's a subscribe button about to pop up here. Click it, subscribe to the channel. You can also hit the bell icon. You'll get some notification whenever I release a new video, which I try to do weekly. Also give us a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel and our analytics, gets us a little bit higher on searches, and gets us in front of more people. So see you guys soon.